Hi, welcome to Audiobook Academy. This is a self-paced audiobook. There's no need to keep an eye on things. Just pay attention. Thank you for taking the time to listen. This is a book summary of The Happiness Equation by Nick Powdthavee. A dentist, two economics professors, and a bartender enter the establishment. A snippet of a conversation between two economists and a dentist is shared by Nick Powdthavee in The Happiness Equation, which may sound like a joke. If the dentist was happy in his work, he replied that it made him miserable. Why did he choose to become a dentist? That stupid kid from 18 years ago who decided to become a dentist, he replied. Not for me. To better understand happiness, the happiness equation examines the powerful combination of behavioral economics and research on the psychology of happiness. Is there anything I can do to be happier? Is money the only thing that makes us happy? Whether or not a life event can be valued is an open question. Is it true that having children makes us happier? What could cause us to be utterly miserable? Is it more important for governments to try to make their people happier, or should they keep their sights set on economic growth? We believe it should be simple and logical to figure out what makes us happy and to take actions to make that happen. But most of us can think back to regretful decisions, both large and small. We firmly believe that we would be happier today if we had made a different choice. Our nagging suspicion is that there is a simple solution to happiness. Just yet, we haven't quite figured it out. This summary will guide you through some of the more basic questions about happiness. We'll examine why so many of us are like the dentist in that we have trouble figuring out what makes us happy and how to fix that problem. As the scientific debate over how to measure happiness heats up, Powdthavee provides us with valuable information about our own personal happiness levels. In addition, we investigate the importance of happiness and whether or not government intervention in the pursuit of happiness can provide answers. The study of happiness is complicated by a few statistical mysteries. Is it possible to quantify one's level of happiness? If you can't save it in a piggy bank like you can with money, you're not going to be happy. Economists have traditionally shied away from using happiness measurements because they didn't trust the statistics generated by surveys of life satisfaction. Scientific studies require careful differentiation between a correlational and cause and effect relationship, but this is problematic when it comes to seemingly intangible psychological concepts. However, research by statisticians Richard McKelvey and William Zavoyna confirms a statistical method called ordered probit, which reveals that if we can obtain ordered variables in research, we can reliably interpret something as intangible as happiness levels. Scientists have relied on rational thinking as a starting point for their research. All of us, including our disgruntled dentist, would make better choices if we were rational decision makers, however. As it turns out, we're only half sane at best. Associative, emotional, and automatic thinking are all part of our brain's limbic system. Decision-making under pressure or when information is incomplete or too complicated for us often relies on the latter. Our reflections on our past experiences are also often inaccurate. Peak and effect researchers Daniel Kahneman and colleagues describe this tendency to evaluate past experiences, good or bad, according to how we felt during the apex of those experiences and what they ended up being like. Behavioral economists like Nick Powdthavee, and psychologists who study happiness, have crossed the great divide and joined forces to broaden their understandings of happiness, which is why we tend to hold on to the memories that are firmly etched in our minds, rather than the ordinary daily experiences. They've discovered a variety of factors, both internal and external, that affect our mood. Richard Davidson, a professor of psychology at the University of Wisconsin, used MRI scans to examine how our brains react to different emotions. Study participants with more left-side activity reported feeling more positive than those with more right-side activity, and were more likely to be rated as unhappy by their friends and family members. Individual neurology appears to play a significant role in our happiness, according to this study. David Snowden, a professor of neurology in the United States, has also found this. In Snowden's research, he focused on nuns because of their similar circumstances. In light of these similarities, it becomes simpler to eliminate variables that could muddy the picture of cause and effect. Snowden was able to divide the nuns into two groups based on the tone, content, and language of their diaries. Only 40% of the unhappy nuns lived to the age of 85. Over 90% of the happy nuns lived to be at least 85 years old. What's the verdict? Life expectancy is increased in people who are content. Happier people tend to recover from physical wounds more quickly, according to additional research. Then there's our personalities to consider. We are who we are because of our unique personalities. Extroverted, agreeable, conscientious, and open to new experiences people are more likely to have high levels of life satisfaction, according to research. The opposite is true as well. The more neurotic a person is, i.e., someone who is more irritable, anxious, and self-conscious, the more likely they are to report being unhappy, regardless of the external factors. Finally, happiness is a two-way street. A long-term study by psychologist Ed Diener shows a correlation between students' positive mood and their future earning potential. People who are content with their lives are also more likely to engage in altruistic behaviors. People who are happy tend to live longer. In other words, it appears that happiness leads to success, but that success also increases one's happiness level. It's important to remember that causality can go either way when looking at data from a statistical perspective. Then there are all of the things that happen in our lives outside of us. There is a lot more to happiness than just biology. The way we see our lives is heavily influenced by our financial circumstances. Do you think that having more money would make you happier? No matter what culture we come from, our instinctive response would be to say yes. Research by Richard Easterlin in the 1970s challenged this belief. When he began his research, he discovered that, in many countries, the rich were much happier than the poor. However, it is expected that an increase in income for citizens will lead to a more contented society. This is a reasonable assumption, isn't it? Actually, that's not quite right. Easterlin discovered that despite the fact that the U.S. economy has grown steadily since World War II, overall happiness in the country has not increased. As a result, the rich are happier than the poor, but an increase in income for everyone does not increase happiness for everyone. If this is true, then everything is relative, as Powdthavee proposes. There are two reasons why we want money. Because we need it to survive and because we enjoy the social status that comes with it. Why would anyone want to drive an Austin Maestro over an Aston Martin? In our self-assessment, we look to those with whom we share similar socio-economic characteristics, according to research by Spanish economist Ada Ferrer y Carbonell. To put it another way, we strive to be on par with the people around us. When we earn more money than our neighbors, we feel better about ourselves. However, if everyone's income rises at the same rate, no one is happier. In China, for example, researchers found that 70% of rural Chinese compare themselves to those in their own village. But only 11% of those polled said they compared themselves to those outside their village. As a result, we are prone to comparing ourselves to the people with whom we associate, and our contentment rises when we think we have more than those around us. People in a country undergoing demographic shifts take economic progress made by others as a sign of what the future may hold for them as well. However, if no shifts occur within a short period of time, their optimism may turn to disappointment, lowering their level of happiness. To put it another way, we care a great deal about how much money we make compared to others. Accordingly, both absolute and relative income are important to us. What helps us to overcome the pain of a negative event? If we are able to adjust to difficult life circumstances, and if money can make up for this, is an interesting question to ponder. According to the set point theory, when faced with a difficult life event, we tend to return to our previous levels of happiness. Contrary to what some argue, cross-sectional research, which compares the happiness of a large group of people at the same time, can be difficult to interpret. The ability to extrapolate causal relationships is greatly enhanced by looking at a person's reported happiness over a long period of time, both before and after specific positive or negative life events. Individuals' psychological well-being suffers as a result of unemployment, according to research. In addition, men appear to be particularly vulnerable to the effects of trauma. Even after 5 years of unemployment, the process of healing one's mind after losing one's job was not complete. The word average is frequently used in statistical findings, but we all know that not everyone is average. For example, men are more negatively affected by unemployment than women, and men with higher education levels are more negatively affected than men with lower education levels. The economist Andrew Clark claims that unemployment is easier to deal with when the unemployment rate in your area is high. Furthermore, he claims that if overall unemployment rates in the region were above 24%, the gap between the happiness of those employed and those who are unemployed would disappear. A social norm effect is at work here, and social norms have an impact on our well-being. Divorce, what's next? People who are separated or divorced are significantly less happy than their married counterparts at the crossroads. Life satisfaction actually decreases before the divorce is finalized for those going through a divorce, however. There are approximately 4 years of unhappiness in the past for men and 2 years of unhappiness for women. After the breakup, the adaptation process can be completed within a reasonable amount of time. The reason why our adaptability differs in different life contexts is unclear. Psychologists Stan Gilbert and Timothy Wilson are mentioned by our author. They contend that when our focus is diverted away from a particular event, we begin to adjust to it. Because of this, time may be an effective means of healing old wounds. Our minute-by-minute experience is impacted by unemployment, disability, and long commutes. How to be happy is a state of mind, not a state of being. It is true that we all have a particular genetic and personality wiring, but the place where we focus our attention each day has a significant impact on how we respond to changes in our daily life. How important it is to have social connections. One of the most important social relationships is marriage. Prior to getting married, most of us are the happiest, and this happiness reaches its pinnacle on the day of the wedding. However, after 2 years of married bliss, this joy begins to fade. New research shows that newlyweds are more content than singles. The importance of other social relationships cannot be overstated. It's important to keep in touch with family and friends who may be in other parts of the country. People who spend a lot of time with friends and family over the course of a year are happier than those who spend little time with friends and family. People who interact with their neighbors on a daily basis for a year are happier than those who don't. Behavioral economists are trying to figure out how much money would be needed to make up for these situations. For example, in order to be as happy as their more social counterparts, someone who doesn't talk to anyone in the neighborhood needs to be paid the equivalent of about $2,950 per year, as per 2011 calculations. How much happier are you if you have a child? When our author made his findings public, it sparked a heated debate about whether or not having a child makes you a happier person. In the first 5 years of a child's life, evidence suggests that having a child does not improve the happiness of parents, and that having a child actually decreases marital satisfaction. It's explained this way by Powdthavee. It's a widely held belief that having children will make us happier in the long run. Even if this is a mistaken belief, the importance of intergenerational transmission cannot be overstated for the sake of evolution. We also want to appear attractive to others, so we may exaggerate the positive aspects of our parental experience. In addition, there may be a deeper explanation for these results. Again, it's possible that our focus is off-kilter. A baby's adorable smile elicits a strong emotional response, but it may not be as common as the day-to-day stresses of raising a child. Most of our time is spent worrying about our children, which is a waste of our energy. And this may be reflected in our self-reported levels of happiness. Despite the fact that children may not bring us happiness in the here and now, they help us develop a greater sense of purpose and self-worth. Subjective well-being, according to Powdthavee, has many facets. In addition to positive emotions, meaningful experiences are also a part of the equation. It's possible that living a meaningful life is preferable to merely pursuing hedonic contentment. What is the social importance of personal well-being? When you're happy, you spread it around. A happier society can be created through the power of contagious positivity. We only need to make a small number of people happy and then wait for this to spread across the community. As a result of our happiness and optimism, it has a reverberating effect. If we can make our hiking companion or coworker happier, we can expect that their happiness will spread to others. When we're happy, we can help others be happy, too. It's like a potential epidemic. Because it works both ways, it's a problem. Should governments get involved in creating a more pleasant environment? For example, we've learned that engaging in activities such as volunteerism or meditating can be both uplifting and meaningful. In order to make them more appealing to their citizens, governments could implement policies to that effect. As a result, Powdthavee wonders if this shouldn't be left up to the individual to decide, rather than the government deciding on policy. Developing policy also necessitates a shift away from traditional metrics like GDP and the Human Development Index in favor of new measures of happiness. Even if we do not fall into the trap of politicians putting their own needs before their constituents' needs, Powdthavee wonders how expensive policy mistakes could be. Economic experts and medical experts may soon join forces to develop objective measures of happiness, such as the correlation between self-rated happiness and hypertension levels across countries. This would be a fascinating advancement. The measurement of happiness could benefit from more objective research. In closing, here we go. The idea of happiness is often regarded as vague and ill-defined. This pragmatic approach to happiness provides extensive data and research to dissect a lot of common-sense wisdom about what makes us happy and fulfilled. We are told money can't buy happiness, that letting go is the secret of happiness, and that it's the small things that bring us joy. Our narrator recounts a conversation he had with his grandmother, who is 90 years old. After hearing about his findings, she claimed to have known about them all along. Powdthavee's findings are in line with the ancient Buddhist belief she recited. Happiness is nothing more than a state of mind that we can train given enough effort and time, says the Buddhist saying, craving leads to suffering. So, When it comes to happiness, we need to take responsibility and view it as a journey rather than an end goal. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Please don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. See you in next audiobook.